If anyone listening fancies having a go at a multi-day enduro like this, I think there's a few key things that you really need to get right to make sure that you survive a brutal 6 days of riding your bike day after day. So one of the most important things I think you need to get right for a big multi-day event like this is to get your fueling right, to make sure that you're drinking and eating, but certainly drinking enough fluids. And I've been working with Precision Hydration as a sponsor now for a good few years. And actually, it was really important, having not done an event like this for a good few years, not being as fit as I was since the last time, to make sure that I really tick the box with that. So I really used the help and knowledge from these guys to kind of set up a bit of a plan, to also have that strategy to make sure that you stick to it. It's really easy to forget to drink. I think that's one of the most important things at the start. So having a plan of knowing how much fluids you need to get into your body, each hour, is a really good way to start. So you don't forget hours goes past and you haven't had a drink. So working with water as well is making sure that it's not just water. That's the biggest thing to kind of realize. People sometimes think, I just need to drink water, but actually you're losing a lot of, when you're sweating, you're using a lot of salts. So I did some testing with the guys to work out, what's the optimum amount of sodium I needed to get back inside my body. So using the pH 1,500 milligrams as a kind of loading in the mornings and at night time to make sure I was fully hydrated before I started. And then using 1,000 milligrams, either tablets or little sachets I carried in my bag, to make sure that basically I was getting, every drink I was having was also getting some sodium, helping hydrate myself. And some of it, I also had some carbs in the drink as well. So I was also getting a little bit of food involved with that water as well, to make sure I was topping up on that. The second thing as well, alongside your hydration, is also making sure you've got good fuel, so you're getting some food source into the body. Our days varied from 4 hours to up to 12 hours being out on the bike. So that's a lot of time where you're not going to necessarily get access to normal food. And also you can't carry that amount of food with you. So some of the food I was getting was going to be through my drink. So I used a carb drink that had 60 grams of carbs in, that I was using that in my bottle and in my backpack. So I always had fluids that also had some carbs. And then I was using a gel and some of Precision's chews. And I actually found the chews really, really nice and easy to eat. It felt like you're actually getting a bit of food rather than sometimes it always just being liquid. So that was a really good balance between using the gels and the chews, and then also carrying just some nut bars. We also had a feed station actually each day. So we did get a chance to top up on water. They had loads of little sweets, they had nuts, some salty stuff, a mixture of things. And we were also given a packed lunch each day. So there was either a wrap or a little baguette, a packet of crisps and some fruit and a kind of an energy bar or nut bar. So we had those, again, carrying in our backpacks or wherever you could carry them. And again, just trying to make sure that I was getting between 90, even 100 grams of carbs an hour was kind of what we aimed for. It's quite hard to really keep note of that sometimes when you're riding and you're kind of getting into the day. But for me, it was just making sure I was eating something every half an hour was my kind of goal, to make sure there wasn't, an hour or more going past where I hadn't had some food. And on the really big days, I made sure I kind of took time, actually had like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sat down, enjoyed the view, and actually kind of ate my lunch and made sure there was some good solids going in at some point as well. When I knew I'd got like a 3-hour liaison to the next stage, it was important to kind of have a break and get some, a big feed in, really. The other little thing I think that really helped, that the guys kind of advised, was making sure I had either a gel or a chew 15 minutes before each stage, because obviously each stage is the bit you're getting timed on. So you really need to go as fast as you possibly can for that stage. So making sure that concentration levels were high, you had enough glucose in the body to make sure you were alert and reacting, and get into that habit of, it's basically a daily routine of, drinking and eating and making sure you stick to it. And a good mix of things I think is important as well. I couldn't have survived just on gels or just on chews. It was a mixture of, some really easy to eat and easy to carry stuff and some things that I was picking up along the way. So really, really important to get that fueling right. One of the other things to think about is to how you're going to carry the spares and your food and drink that you need throughout the week. And I opted for a slightly bigger backpack than many people. There was a few people with some tiny little bum bags, and I was thinking, how for one are they going to get enough water, to be able to carry enough water, have enough food to be able to replenish, my sodium sachets for my water. I was carrying that. If you don't have the space, you can't carry any of that stuff, and you also can't carry any spares. So if you end up having multiple punctures, or you've got issues with your chain, you need to have, I think, a basic set of a chain repair tool to be able to actually take your chain apart and put it back together again, and the pins you need for that. You need to have a tube if you do have a puncture and you can't reseal it. Obviously, most people are going to be on tubeless, so also plugs. That's the definite thing for tubeless tires. Be able to have plugs that you can plug in, a CO2 then to reinsert. A pump as well. If your CO2's run out, you need to have a pump. I also think it's a really good idea to have some spare brake pads. If you end up doing, 20,000 meters descending over the course of a week, you're going to get through some brake pads. And if you end up burning through a pair midday and you've still got 1,000 meter descent to race down, you might be in trouble. So that's always a really good thing to have. And then just having, I guess, any specific bolts that are to your bike. So there is a mechanic lunchtime and at the end of the day, which has general spares they can help you out with. But if you've got a particular bike that has a really specific kind of bolt that's needed, suspension, swing arms or whatever, then it's worth carrying a small bag with those little bolts in, because otherwise your week could be over if no one's got any of those. And then also having space in that backpack for a rain jacket. We had a day where we were properly in a thunderstorm and it absolutely poured down. And we were at 2,700 meters and it's not warm. So making sure you've got a buff and a rain jacket, a really good rain jacket, was really important as well. I even had a spare pair of gloves, because if they get really, really wet and cold and you can't feel your hands and you're descending for 20 minutes, that also can be pretty, as a safety aspect, can be an issue. So I think another really important thing that's going to help you get through and survive a 6-day race like this is preparing your bike and your kit before you even get to the start line, making sure that your bike's had a service. You're not going there with, an old worn chain. You're starting off with good equipment. And also kind of having an idea of what the terrain is going to be like. So obviously being Maritime Alps, the further we got towards the Med, the more rocky it got. So potential for punctures gets greater. So I think also choosing the equipment to know that it can last. I did make a bit of an error. We're allowed to carry actually a bag of spares that they take each day. So each night you can potentially change a tire, repair any issues that you've got. So I went for kind of fast rolling rear tire, particularly because I knew there's going to be lots of pedaling and I'm not as fit as I was. So I wanted a little bit of help. But I soon realised on day one that there's a potential there to get a puncture on some of the terrain, and I had an issue with the valve, so I basically switched it out on day 2 to make sure I had full downhill tyres, which are super slow to roll. But at this point, I realised that getting down the day, not making mistakes, and not having punctures was more important. So I think really being prepared with your equipment is going to make your week at the race so much more pleasant if you're not having to spend an hour every night fixing stuff, changing brake pads because you came with half-worn ones. So investing that time to make sure your bike is in top condition before you get there is really important. One other key thing really is, again, surviving a 6-day race is to make sure you don't make huge mistakes. It's easy to have a crash, go off the side of the trail, lose 1 or 2 minutes, and that's a really hard and a big chunk of time to try and get back. So it's about being really consistent, I think, and making sure that you're riding within yourself. It's blind racing, so you don't know what's around the next corner. So you've got to approach that corner, not guessing it's going right, it suddenly goes left. Being in control, I think, is also a really important thing. And also pacing your day. There's no point going off flat out and then, losing the energy by the end of the day and not having that concentration to make it down the stages. So, being really smart with how you ride, not taking risks unnecessarily. But again, having the energy to kind of push on. If there's a really open section that you can see there's no risk, then crack on the pedals, put some time into the other people around you. And I think that's a really important thing. It's just trying to be consistent and within yourself. So as each day you only make small errors and you only lose a few seconds of time rather than huge big chunks with mechanicals or crashes just from getting a bit too keen, basically. So sometimes it's maybe it doesn't seem as fun not riding absolutely flat out, but for me, it's the long game. And it's, if you want to do really well at these races, you've got to find that pace and stick to it. And then my final one would just be how you kind of your daily routine ends up making sure that you recover well each night and you're prepared for the next day. So as soon as you get back from the race, you hand in your timing chip, obviously get the results. There's often some snacks straight away. So getting that food and that fuel in really quite quickly is key as well. So you're not ending up, waiting a few hours before dinner comes, which often is later in the day. So getting those initial hydration in, some snacks in to get the food levels up. And then I always try and look after my bike straight away, even before I have a shower, unless I'm freezing. Get your bike washed, give it a clean, get the basics done on it. So as then you haven't got to go back to that later in the day when you're really tired. And also you're not working on a dirty bike when you've just had a shower and you're clean. So then get all the muddy stuff done, bike done, then go and have a shower myself. Again, if there's time, have some time to stretch or even have a nap. That's always a nice thing if it's a luxury. We did have some massage available to us during the week as well if you wanted to book it. So that's always a nice luxury to have. I booked one every other day, so as it was like something to kind of look forward to and help see me through the week. And then if you can before dinner, try and get everything prepped for the next day. So empty your bag of any wrappers, any of the stuff you've got left over from the day. Kind of recalibrate what snacks you need for the next day. I had pretty much the same every day I was putting in. Repack your bag, refill your bladders, fill your bottle, get your powder into the bottle, get that literally all set on the bike, and then charge your Garmin, charge your whatever watch you've got, phone, all those devices. So you're all done. So the time dinner's kind of finished and it's got dark, you're then not trying to wash your bike in the dark with a head torch. You're not trying to sort your tent out, and you can actually then just try and be in bed by 9:30, 10 was always my goal really if we could, because we were then up at 6 every day, on the bikes at 7. So ultimately getting that rest in, not having to get up extra early in the morning to do all the things that you hadn't done the night before is also a nice thing. You don't start the day rushing. So definitely you get into a bit of routine actually, and it's like you know what's to do next, and then you kind of once the weekends, it's almost like, oh, my routine's gone. I'm kind of missing that. Packing my tent up every morning stuff. So yeah, it's really important just to be on it. And sometimes when you're tired, just push through and make sure you get all those things done so you can have a good rest.